stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism. One mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
It's the 18th of August, 2014, and damn, there's a lot to talk about tonight. I'm Joe Joseph. Welcome to the Freedom Link on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, along with Dr. Jason Pujo. Man, I tell you what, buddy, we got a lot to talk about tonight, don't we?
Well, we certainly.
Just craziness unfolding, and I got to tell you, tonight we have to start out with some good news. Good. I like to start. Let's start off Monday with a little good news, shall we? And that has to do with a feel-good story, something that makes me feel so good, so warm and snuggly inside. Yes, and that has to do with some teens that have gone about doing the right thing, almost, taking matters into their own hands. Yes, it happens, folks. It happens in America. It happens throughout the world. And this is such a great example of what happens when you engage your children in the fight against tyranny, in the fight against globalism, because believe it or not, they will respond. They do respond. Okay, so yes, I know. Oh yeah, mom and dad, they're not cool and yada yada. Yeah, guess what? It's even starting to affect them now too. Let's not forget that children, typically they like to hang out with their friends. Go do their thing. Like to be left alone. They'll go to the park. They'll do all that stuff. Well, we're not the only ones getting harassed by the police and the overreach of police power. Children are being just as affected as well and demonized and looked at as enemies. Well, instead of directing their energy in a fashion that could have negative consequences on them, a group of children out of California, teenagers, 3 teens, created an incredible police accountability app for smartphones with tons of awesome features. And I would love everybody to go check out the Free Thought Project, because John Vibes did a article on this yesterday, and I just don't think it's garnering enough attention, and it really needs to get attention. I'm actually going to try and get a hold of their folks and get them on the broadcast so we can talk about this. But John writes, a new app will become available for iPhone and Android devices later this month that will allow people to rate their local police department as well as their individual police encounters. Possibly the most impressive thing about this app is that it was created by a few young teenagers who wanted to find solutions to the problem of police corruption. 14-year-old Caleb Christian and his 2 sisters, 16-year-old Ima and 15-year-old Asha, plan to release their revolutionary new app called 5-0 on August 18th. That would be today. The app will allow people to review and rate their experiences with police, much like the app Yelp allows people to rate and review private businesses. Now, I think that is a fantastic idea. 5-0 will allow users to share the details of their police encounters and traffic stops with the world, and will make it possible for victims of police brutality to instantly gather local support for their case. Now, Ima was quoted as saying, "We've been hearing about the negative instances in the news. For instance, most recently, the Michael Brown case. And we always talk about these issues with our parents, and they always try to reinforce that we should focus on solutions." Damn, I like their parents. It's important to talk about these issues, but they try to make the focus on finding solutions. That made us think, why don't we create an app to help solve this problem? So these 3 teens actually went and created this app. And you can find it. The freethoughtproject.com has it. Also, Business Insider was the one that originally did the interview. And it's called 5-0, Five-O. What do you
Yes.
think, buddy?
That's an important distinction because there is another app that's the number 5-0 that allows you to listen in on police radios worldwide.
Yeah, so I mean,
So-
it is an important distinction, but again, this is something. Wow, teenagers built this app, and this is the kind of stuff that we need. I mean, I understand that we tend to demonize technology from time to time, but we have to understand that it's being used against us too. So we need to use it as well. And these kids have gone about looking for a solution to the problem. And if you look at this app, it's really cool. I can't wait to actually get it on my phone. And you know what? If you have it, great. There's also another app that I like too, and that's the ACLU New Jersey's police tape app. And basically what that does is, should you, in the event of a police encounter, need to record either video or audio, what this does is it will upload that video and audio directly to the ACLU cloud server, so that even if they destroy your phone, you have a record of that encounter.
That's
And
pretty
I
cool.
think that's another valuable tool out there too. We deal with this overreach of police powers, and I know Kev Baker talked about this on his show briefly, and how in Glasgow, now they're starting to arm the police. Let's not forget, in the UK, Jason, this is a relatively new thing, for the police to be armed. So they're even getting into it too. The only difference is they have a much more broad and expansive video surveillance state there than we do in the United States. Although I have to say, we're quickly catching up, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, actually, we were catching up pretty quickly with the amount of surveillance cameras everywhere, and license plate readers. If you're unfortunate enough to live in a state that has those, it's catching up pretty quickly to England. Where I know in London you can be on camera. How many different cameras at one time? Is it like 20 or
37, I think it was. I think
Yeah.
it's something stupid and just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So I mean,
there's no reason for it.
No, there's no reason for it. There's absolutely no reason for it, just like there's no reason for the militarization of the police state. Now, I will say I have been absolutely thrilled to see that we have mainstream exposure now of the 1033 program. And for the next, half hour or so, maybe even more, we're going to get into Ferguson and exactly what's going on there as far as what could be the driving factor. And also, what is the ulterior motive here? What are they trying to do? What is this all about? The more that I look into this, the more shenanigans I'm finding, especially when it comes to this administration, who has nothing on their agenda but trying to divide and conquer and distract people from what's actually really going on. So I want to start off with that and point out that Obama has now sent Attorney General Eric Holder to Missouri. That's not good. This is Captain Divide and Conquer. That's who he is. I mean, he makes the Black Panthers look like altar boys. That's the extent of the evil that is Eric Holder.
Yeah, the shady as all get out.
Man, I mean, you want to talk about hood rat. There's a hood rat right there for you. Grade A, numero uno, hood rat. Could not have picked a bigger hood rat to go in. I would rather have Louis Farrakhan as the Attorney General than I would Eric Holder. Just saying.
I think he'd be a much better choice.
Yeah, I mean, at least Farrakhan talks about issues that I can agree with from time to time.
He talks about Ron Paul from the pulpit, so it's like, He can't be all that bad anymore.
No. No, I mean, hey, with age you mellow, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he's done just that, but Eric Holder has not. Now, this, according to the AP, it says President Barack Obama sending Eric Holder to Ferguson, Missouri to meet with federal law enforcement authorities investigating, I was going to say provocateuring, the police, yeah, because that's what they do, investigating the police shooting of an unarmed teenager. Now, the interesting thing, too, and this is what I found out today, is that the Obama administration had told and requested not just the Ferguson Police Department, but also the governor's office to delay the release of footage, both from the convenience store and also from witnesses of the actual shooting itself. And if you look at the actual footage, what happens is it paints a different picture. Now, this to me doesn't justify the police response to the protesters. And it also doesn't, I'm not the guy, I'm not the police officer, not in his shoes, don't know how I would react in a situation like that. But I have to tell you, if you look at the convenience store testimony, the videotape footage, he goes in there, reaches over the counter, grabs a big box of Philly blunts, and walks out of the store. A tiny little Oriental-looking store owner comes after him, tries to block the door, and he just shoves him out of the way and walks out with this stuff, right? Okay, so now he's perpetrated a crime. Well, then there's witness testimony that they didn't realize got recorded, and basically confirms what the police were saying was going on with this whole this whole thing, Jason, which is, that this quote unquote gentle giant, if you will, actually went after the police officer first, and then actually came back and charged him a second time, and that's when he got shot. So I wasn't there. I don't know the dynamic, but it does paint a different picture. And it also goes to show exactly that there is an agenda behind not only victimizing him, but also perpetrating this divide and conquer, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. And if that's the way it looks like, it might have been, he attacked him, then you can get into the whole, armchair quarterbacking and say, well, why didn't the officer use a taser, which, they all have and whatnot, but if he feared for his life at that moment, then, all bets are off, and it's like, okay, you're going to take a walk in his shoes.
Yeah.
What would you have done in facing the same situation?
Now, let's not forget, this guy's 6'4". He's a big boy. Okay. Very easily overpower somebody of, say, average size and stature. So, and the thing that we have to do, folks, is we have to look at both sides of the story. We can't be tunnel visioned and say, oh, well, this is just the way it is, and that's the way it has to be. No, if we're going to be responsible about this, we have to look at both sides of the story. Now, what I can say is after the shooting went down, the response was horrible. And the fact that provocateurs have been allowed to loot and plunder unhindered just reeks of an agenda. And that, my friends, is very dangerous, especially when we start to see how it's all kind of coming together and what it is that's driving this all. And when he sends Eric Holder there, and they've already sent their Justice Department goon squad down there to raise the tension level, that's not good. Not good at all. That's my concern. And then, you take a look at people that have been providing commentary about this. And I got to tell you, I'm pleased to see the dialogue that's coming out about this whole event. My problem is, what was it in New York over the weekend? There were 18 people shot. In Chicago, God only knows how many people were shot and killed. I saw the statistic. It was in the 20s.
Yeah, and no outrage over this.
No outrage over there. I'll bet you a bunch of it was black on black, whatever. We're so hung up on skin color. It makes no freaking. I can't, for the life of me, wrap my arms around it. We get so wrapped up in skin color, it makes me sick. It does. And it's, it's everybody gets hung up on this skin color thing. And it goes back a long ways. It really isn't about skin color at the end of the day. It's anti-culturalism. That's really what it is. It's different cultures and a clash of cultures. But one thing that I found very interesting, Jason, was that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually weighed in on this. And I find that interesting because,
I didn't read the article, but I did see the headline.
Yeah, growing up, it was always I always liked the Lakers versus Celtics. So I was a big Celtic fan growing up. And so, it was always about Bird versus Magic. And then there was Kareem and the Sky Hook and all that kind of stuff. So when I saw him weigh in on it, I'm like, ooh, kind of brings back memories of yesteryear. But he writes, Ferguson is not just about systemic racism. It's about class warfare and how America's poor are held back. This says Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I have to say that I agree with him in the fact that, yes, the elitists are looting and plundering, and the chasm between the poor and the rich is growing exponentially. I mean, faster than at any time in human history. So he's absolutely right. He says, will the recent rioting in Ferguson, Missouri, be a tipping point in the struggle against racial injustice? Or will it be a minor footnote in some future grad student's thesis on civil unrest in the early 21st century? The answer can be found in May of 1970. You probably have heard of the Kent State shootings. On May 4th, 1970, the Ohio National Guard opened fire on student protesters at Kent State University. During those 13 seconds of gunfire, 4 students were killed and 9 were wounded, one of whom was permanently paralyzed. The shock and outcry resulted in a nationwide strike of 4 million students that closed more than 450 campuses. 5 days after the shooting, 100,000 protesters gathered in Washington, D.C., and the nation's youth was energetically mobilized to end the Vietnam War. Racism, sexism, and mindless faith in the political establishment. You probably haven't heard of the Jackson State shootings, though. On May 14th, 10 days after Kent State ignited the nation, at the predominantly black Jackson State University in Mississippi, police killed 2 black students, one a high school senior, the other the father of an 18-month-old baby, with shotguns and wounded 12 others. Now, there was no national outcry, and the nation was not mobilized to do anything. The heartless Leviathan we call history swallowed that event whole, erasing it from the national memory. And unless we want the Ferguson atrocity to also be swallowed and become nothing more than an intestinal irritant to history, we have to address the situation not just as another act of systemic racism, but as what it is really, and that is class warfare. By focusing on just the racial aspect, the discussion becomes about whether Michael Brown's death or that of the other 3 unarmed black men who were killed by the police in the U.S. within that month is about discrimination or about police justification. And then we'll argue about whether there isn't just as much black against white racism in the U.S. as there is white against black. Yes, there is, but in general, white against black economically impacts the future of the black community. Black against white has almost no measurable social impact. I disagree with him there. Then we'll start debating whether or not the police in America are themselves an endangered minority who are also discriminated against on their color, blue. And yes, they are. There are many factors to consider before condemning police, including political pressures, inadequate training, and arcane policies, not to mention the militarization of the police force. Then we'll question whether blacks are more often shot because they more often commit crimes. Here's let me stop it there for a second. Here's the problem. It's not about color. They'll use this to try and make the point, but really it's not about color at this point. It's about the elitists and the globalist agenda to enslave humanity. That's all it is. That's all it is. Okay, so prior to the civil rights movement of the 1960s, yes, blacks were discriminated against. They were not treated equally based on the color of their skin and had been for a long time. Let's not forget, during the slave trade and all that kind of stuff, that it was a centuries of tradition dating back to the Spanish bringing over slaves from Africa and everything else. It's bad stuff. But the blacks didn't get their freedom in the 60s. No. That didn't happen. What happened was everybody else was brought into harmony, into sync with blacks. So the blacks came up, whites, Latinos, Hispanic, everybody came down. See, now we're on the same level. You may not think that, you may not recognize that, but we're on the same level. We're all slaves now. We've all been lumped in. We've all become slaves to the system. So let's not be fooled by this black on white divide and conquer tactic that everybody falls prey to, that everybody just kind of gathers around. It's easy, you know, when you think about it, Jason. It's easy to blame that because it's kind of like a cop-out at this point. Don't you think? Yeah. Are you there, buddy?
Yeah, I think I'm here.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is. It's a cop-out. Is basically what it is. Now, I'm not saying that it's harder to it's harder to come up from, say, the inner city. If you come from Section 8 housing, there's a lot of pressures. There's a lot of societal pressures that come with being in that area. But I got to tell you, I went to high school where whites were the minority.
Mm-hmm.
I know what that's all about. I know what being the minority is all about. I understand it at a personal level. I'll tell you what, you can either fall prey to it or you can overcome it. It's harder these days now more than ever because the economy is being totally and completely trashed. But it's not hard. It's not that it's hard. It's a challenge. It's a continual struggle. I know this, and I'll tell you, if you don't hold yourself to a higher standard, if you don't say that I am better than this, then you're right. You're lost. And I have to say the government has done a great job in incentivizing mediocrity because that's exactly what they've done. I mean, why is it if you have wages, Jason, at 1995 levels, why is it that you would go and work if you can collect welfare, Section 8 housing, get food stamps, possibly even SSI for what? Stay home, not have to work?
Of course. It's all there to encourage that,
Yeah, no. But I mean,
you're going to go out and flip burgers and fries and make fries, or you're going to just stay home.
For what? Exactly. And
Exactly.
then if that's the case, then now the government can hold that over your head and say, if you are bad, if you do things that you're not supposed to do, if you speak out against certain things, if you say what you're not supposed to say, well, then we can take it away from you. That's right. We can take it away. So it's a control tactic. It's what they hold over your head.
Yep.
And it's hard because, if you take a look at what people can get, let's just say you make enough money to make it to the poverty line, which is about $27,000 a year. And then you add welfare, you add Medicaid, you add food stamps, Section 8, all that kind of stuff into it. You end up making about $50,000 a year when you roll in all those benefits. So now the person that's making $50,000 a year working their tail off, they're like, what the heck, man? I'm struggling my butt off to try to survive, working my tail off. I don't qualify for anything. That's crazy. What the heck? Where's my share? Here I am paying into the system. What do I get out of this?
Yeah, the incentive just isn't there.
And what does it do? It de-incentivizes people to work, to better themselves. I mean, literally, USA Today came out with a staggering statistic. And that was that 1 in 8 people now achieve the American dream, in that you need to make roughly $130,000 a year in order to live the American dream. You know, and I could see that. Because cost of living certainly isn't going down.
Yeah, that's definite. I mean, $150,000 just to stay. Oh yeah, easily. That is the kind of money that you would need, especially around here in the Northeast.
Yeah. So when we come back from break, I'm going to get into it, more along the lines of what is this all about? What is this Ferguson thing all about? What are they trying to achieve? Is it to start a civil war in the United States? I don't personally think it will. However, there's some interesting things that they're doing behind the scenes while all this distraction's going on. We'll get into that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Freedom Link on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
Welcome back, everybody. Joe Joseph here, along with Dr. Jason Pujo. You're listening to the Freedom Link on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, 90.7 FM Denver. And I tell you, Popeye made a great point in the chat room. My good buddy Popeye down the rabbit hole. You'll hear his first show of the week tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. He says, this is a quote from Popeye. He says, I think it's interesting how the average person is upset about the surplus military equipment being used by the police on the streets of America against our citizens, yet many of these same people have no problem with the very same equipment being used on the streets of a foreign country against its citizens. The irony, we're now experiencing the same tyranny we've exported worldwide. And as Russell Means once said, welcome to the reservation. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And that's such a relevant point, because we are on a reservation. Look at black, white, brown, don't matter. We are on the reservation. We are being treated like we've treated the rest of the world, forcing our will, or let's just say the control freaks, forcing their will in our name all over the world. Now, that same force is trying to force their will on us. And will we put up with it? One thing that I don't like are excuses. You know what they say? Excuses are like buttholes, if you will. Everyone's got one. And you can listen to black people say why I can't get by, why I can't achieve success. You can hear white people say the same thing. Oh, I can't afford college like those uppity white, upper crust of society, da-da-da. Let me tell you something. It's beyond that. Don't fall prey to the divide and conquer. If you feel like you're being discriminated against, if you see injustice, you need to stand up and speak out about it. It doesn't matter what color you are. Here at Truth Frequency Radio, we have people of all ethnicities, of genders. We don't care about what color you are, how old you are, how much you make, what your background is. Doesn't matter. That's all superficial in the grand scheme of things. We have to understand that. It is all superficial. We are human beings, and we have rights. All of us have human rights. The right to peaceably assemble. If we can peacefully assemble anywhere and protest and address and give, air our grievances to an oppressive government, then that's what we should do. But let me tell you something. When you have Justice Department and Department of Homeland Security provocateurs out there, and you have people that don't even belong to the community of Ferguson, Missouri, going in there and looting stores, that's a problem. Then compound that with the fact that the police were told to stand back, to stand down and let that happen, to inflare tensions, to make it, to just totally take it to the next level. This is being politicized. This is part of an agenda. And let me tell you why I think this is. Because it's convenient how at the same time this is going on, Chairman Obama is flying back from his vacation in Martha's Vineyard on your dime, Americans, on your dime, to go behind closed doors with lobbyists and business leaders to talk about immigration executive orders and what he can do to take executive action. And I'm telling you, this has far-reaching consequences, what he's going to do with immigration. It's bad stuff. Now, Jason, I got to tell you, I kind of felt like this was distraction from the get-go, but I didn't know what it was all about. But I'm starting to see why it is. I'm starting to see why they're starting to push this one event. Because, like I said, it doesn't make any sense. You had how many black people die in Chicago this weekend?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I had, like you said, about 20.
Yeah, like 22.
At any rate, yeah, well, that's
it's unbelievable.
Tragedy, but it's getting blown out of proportion compared to all the other shootings that happen on a weekly basis. And nobody, like we've said before on other times when things have come up, nobody gives a two cares about most of the other people that get shot every week.
That's right.
Nothing ever happens. You know, it's like, what about them? What about memorials for them? What about, it may happen at the local level, but it never becomes a big national issue.
No.
Because nobody cares. That's the reality of it in this country, is nobody really cares.
The apathy.
Or otherwise, because if they cared, this wouldn't happen.
The apathy is staggering,
Yeah. I mean, I know, and before the break, we were alluding to, the population that lives in the inner city and so on and so forth. It's like, well, if you go back to the early part of the 20th century, blacks in this country were upwardly mobile on their own.
Right.
And then along comes welfare, and along comes the handouts, and along comes all this stuff that has done nothing other than keep people repressed. That's all it's done.
Absolutely.
And that's all it was intended from the get-go. It wasn't intended to be the helping hand up. It was a slap in the face to keep them down with it where they belong, according to the people that came up with this crap.
Right.
Instead of bringing people to... Huh?
It's your banksters and your control freaks, ain't it?
Exactly. It has nothing to do with color, because they'd like you, me, and everybody else in this country there too. No matter what color you are. White,
or dead. One of the
exactly.
Georgia Guidestones.
Either dead or a debt slave.
Yeah.
One of the two. Or somebody who's fat, happy, controlled, and living off of GMO foods and TV all day long, and
don't forget to take your fluoride pill.
Yes,
make sure you take your fluoride pill.
Drink it up.
Now to Popeye's point, Infowars.com had a piece today about this document that shows the Army's preparing to use lethal force against unarmed civilians during full-scale riots in the U.S. And that doesn't surprise me. The only problem that I see with that is I give the U.S. military more credit than that. I think that there is a fear tactic. That's a little bit on the fear-mongering side, and let me explain why. Because I work with active duty military all the time, and I can tell you that if they had to turn a gun on their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, their friends, other Americans, you think now, like if you take a look at Katrina in 2005, I think that there was an awareness that happened, that it was a after the facts oopsie daisy type of thing.
Right.
Like, damn,
right. It was
we really took that a bit too far.
Yep. Smell the coffee moment.
Yeah. And of course, in the heat of the moment, here you have a Category 5 storm just slamming New Orleans, and you're rushed down there. You don't have time to think and evaluate what the hell you're doing. You just do what you're told, and you execute your orders. Mm-hmm. But in this case, I got to tell you, I don't really see the U.S. Army doing that. Now, when they talk about civil war and everything, we have this idea of what civil war looks like because we've had it once in America. The problem is it's not going to be the North versus the South this time. There's not going to be clear-cut lines like there was last time.
No, it's going to be the whole thing.
Yeah, it's going to be just mass chaos. is basically what it would be if it goes down that way. I don't think it's going to go down that way personally. And that's just my personal opinion, but that's based on a lot of research and a lot of I don't think people generally want civil war, but they don't want to be oppressed either.
Right.
And we've seen a lot of change happen just from awareness, from people getting pissed without having to fire a shot. And I think that if we just keep doing what we're doing and raise awareness, we can beat this back. But we have to drop the stigma of race, because that's what they're using to control us right now. That's what they're using to control us and to advance this agenda. These thugs like Eric Holder and Obama doing this intentionally to advance agendas. And so Michael Savage, of course, he's not exactly politically correct all the time. He had a caller today about social justice, and he lost it. He absolutely lost it. It was a black caller that called in, and he just lost his ability to control himself. And I want to play this for you now, because sometimes he says things that can be polarizing. I want to get your take on it, Jason. Let me know.
This caller frosted his cookies then, huh?
Oh, my goodness. Here he is.
What would you like to talk about? Anwar, Macon, Georgia. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Fire away.
Okay, well, I just pronounced Macon. But
Is that your Nobel Prize winning statement?
no, I'm just.
Well, try to use your IQ. Make your point, please.
Well, first of all, I hear everything you're saying. One of the things that you're missing is you're not putting any historical context, any kind of real sense to what you're saying. Now,
okay. Let me hear the history now. Let me hear the history. Go ahead. Give us our history.
Okay, good. First
Well, could you do it? Could you do it a little more quickly? You're slowing the show down. Speed it up a bit.
Okay, well, first of all, the historical perspective that we have to look at is, first of all, the injustice that's been going on to black people.
Oh, here we go. Bring up slavery now, reparations. Go ahead.
No, we're not bringing up slavery. We're bringing modern day.
Yeah, modern day, you have a black president, a black attorney general. Most of the government's run by blacks. Wait, can't you get off this storyline already?
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter. When will there be racial harmony in America? Tell me.
Never going to be racial harmony until the institutions that were built on slavery are demolished.
Oh, you mean the institutions that permit these young medical students to run in the streets without working? What institutions? Who's going to support them when these institutions are gone? Who's going to send them their welfare check?
Well, you don't want a dialogue. That's why you're hollering.
I don't want a dialogue. You don't even have the brains. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yes,
You have a dialogue. You just got smashed to the pavement.
No.
Who's going to pay? Who's going to pay for them? Who's going to pay for their welfare check when you destroy these institutions?
And you don't know if all those people are welfare. But let's get back to the fact at hand.
No, let's get back to the fact that you don't know what you're talking about. You yourself would not benefit from a social revolution. What do you think, you're going to be made into a general?
Listen, the institution.
No, you listen to me. You listen to me. What do you think's going to occur if there's a social revolution? What do you think you're going to gain by it?
It'll be the fault of Caucasians for not rectifying the situation that they create.
So, in other words, you want the fall of white people. Is that what you're saying, finally?
All the white people. I said if there's an insurrection in America, it would be the fault of Caucasian people for not correcting the conditions that they have created.
The conditions? You have a black president. What conditions do you want fixed?
Listen,
No, you listen to me. You're not going to browbeat me, Buster. No, you're not in your workplace now where you get away with this nonsense, pulling this racial crap on everybody. All they're doing is they're listening to you, and they know you're an ignoramus. You're not using that game you use on everybody.
Now you just want to holler. But look, that doesn't excuse that.
All right, take a walk. Take a walk. Get off my show. You just lowered the IQ. You dropped the IQ by 30 points. That's all. Here's the funny part. The black middle class is shocked and mortified by what's going on. They don't want this racial enmity that Obama and Holder are, let us say, provoking. They hate Al Sharpton. The black middle class hates Al Sharpton. The black middle class hates what they see because all of their advancements over the last 50 years will be washed away if this keeps up. Are you telling me that if there's a communist revolution and if capitalism is somehow destroyed in this country, there's going to be harmony in America? There's going to be social justice? Show me where a communist revolution has ever yielded anything but mass graves. Show me where. Give me a model example of where a communist revolution of the type that Al Sharpton, and it seems to me this government is pushing us towards, has advanced the society in any way other than creating mountains of skulls.
And so, in his own way, Savage has gone about basically stating that, there's people like, let's take a look at Ben Carson, okay? Mm-hmm. Ben Carson, you want to talk about a guy that overcame a whole bunch of adversity. He's a doctor, Dr. Ben Carson, just a fantastic human being, a brain surgeon at that. Mm. And do you think that he's all for what the heck Eric Holder and Obama are trying to do? Do you think that he likes what the heck Al Sharpton is spewing and Jesse Jackson is spewing? They do nothing but divide and profit off the division. That's all they do. They profit on keeping the blacks and everybody else oppressed. That's what it's all about. People need to open their eyes and see it for what it is and accept it and get away from this politically correct garbage, because who cares about politically correct? If we care so much about it, we will care for it until it means our own well-being. It will be to our peril. I mean, don't you think, buddy?
Definitely. I mean, if you're going to worry about offending someone's sensibilities and nobody's advancing and getting out of the situations that they're in, what good is that?
Exactly. I mean, if we're not trying to better ourselves, and when we better ourselves, society gets better. Society gets better. If we embrace personal responsibility, if we take responsibility for us, for the individual, and say, hey, you know what? I'm sick of mediocrity. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be stuck here anymore. And you do the things that you have to do to make, look, maybe it's a little bit. I spent some time in New York. Mm-hmm. You have to hustle in order to make it in New York. I don't give a crap what you are. I mean, unless you're a banker or a lawyer or a doctor, you have to hustle. It's just the way it is. And if there's one thing I learned in New York is you don't need a college degree or anything else to make a living. You don't. You just need to know how to hustle. You need to know how to make a buck. You need to teach yourself the things and the skills to be able to sustain yourself, sustain your family. And you can do it. You can do it, but it takes sometimes a little out of the box thinking, takes a little guts from time to time, got to jump off the diving board sometimes into the deep end. But, and why are we allowing this division based on skin color? Different skin colors was given by our creator for one reason only. And that was to be able to adapt to the weather of the environment where we live and come from. That's it. That's the only difference between black skin and white skin. And that's what we're fighting over?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely asinine. It really amazes me that it has so much play, because if you think about, our generation's growing up, and anybody younger than us and a little bit older than us, I mean, what did we grow up hearing as kids through the 70s and 80s? Everybody's the same, everybody's equal, so on and so forth. We grew up with that, and to the point where, I think a lot of us understand that. We don't have this idea that anybody, that people are generally different because of skin color or where they're from. I think a lot of our generations, X, Y, the one just before X, I think most of us, generally speaking, get the idea that we're all people, we're all human beings.
Let me point
so it's amazing. It's amazing that this gets any traction at all these days.
Absolutely.
You know?
Let me point this out too, Jason. History's history, okay?
Mhm.
Lots of whites suffered persecution, whether it be religious or otherwise. Look at the Irish immigrants that came over in the United States during the 1800s, okay? They were treated like garbage. They were worse. They were filth. Chinese Americans, Italian Americans, all these immigrants came over and they were looked upon like they were the scum of the earth. And what did they do? Did they sit on their laurels? Did they say, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. No, they didn't say I'm a victim. They didn't look for reparations. You know what they did? They got their hands dirty. They went to work and they made something of themselves. My grandparents came through Ellis Island, and they started something from nothing. And they made a life. They moved on. They didn't focus on the past. They focused on the present. And that's what we have to do now. Look, we can cry over spilt milk all we want and say, gosh, it was wrong the way you were treated. Absolutely. It was wrong during the Spanish Inquisition for Christians to be freaking slaughtered and tortured and drawn and quartered and everything else. But you want to know something? It happened. Do we still dwell on it? No, we don't dwell on it. We move the freaking hell on. Why? Because if we didn't, what's there to live for? What do we have at that point? How are we ever going to advance as humanity, as society, if we can't just put our freaking differences aside and carry on smartly, learn from the past, and then take on the present and improve what can happen in the future? If we use the past, if we use history, if we learn from history, we can really make some great strides. But if we continue to dwell on it and we let it limit our capacity to change things for the better, dude, we are screwed. That's just the facts.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't live in the past, and you can't live in somebody else's past. I mean, ultimately, what people like that caller to Savage complain about didn't happen to them.
No,
it happened to
but it's an excuse.
Their ancestors.
It's an excuse.
Of course, it's an excuse.
It'd be
like me. It'd be like us saying, whatever happened to our relatives in the 1850s, we deserve something for it.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
My grandfather went through the potato famine, and because of that, I can't get a job. I mean, are you serious?
Well, that could be like my grandfather his family had to come down from Quebec, and he worked in a mill, and he worked in a funeral home, and he did all this to try to put food on the table for 5 kids and, go live through the Depression.
Yeah.
No, he did it. He did what he had to do.
And it's a reason to hate, right? That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a reason to hate. Instead of embracing love for your fellow man, it just gives you a reason to vilify and hate him some more.
Yeah.
Which is really productive in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I have to say society has really benefited from that. So look, we can continue to analyze this, but it's really cut and dry. Are we going to man up in this country? Are we going to do a package check in this country and say the things that need to be said? Doesn't matter what your skin color is. Say the things that need to be said. Fight for the things that need to be fought for. And stop worrying about political correctness, and stop letting these flipping hood rats in Washington run this country into the ground, because that's what's happening. They're not just running the country into the ground. They're running the world into the ground. They're not just provocateuring in Missouri. They're provocateuring in the Ukraine. They're provocateuring in Syria. They're provocateuring in Israel and in Gaza. But you know what? Whoa! Now it's happening in Ferguson. Now it's happening all over this country. And now, how many people have died at our hands? By the hands of our military. We put Hitler to shame.
Untold millions.
We put Hitler to shame. I mean, Hitler was like the patron saint of good and normalcy compared to what we've achieved and the genocide that we've achieved. All in the name of freedom and democracy. I recently heard a song. I can't remember on the. Yeah. It's I can't remember. It's called I think it's a Chicken Fry song. I can't remember what the heck it is, but it's a country song. And he stops in the middle of the song and he's like, starts singing about the red, white, and blue and let freedom ring. Let freedom ring? Where? Where's it ringing? You show me where freedom's ringing in this world. I'll be the first one on that boat or plane. No, I ain't going to take a plane. I don't want to get groped. But I'll take a boat. Just saying. I mean, where the hell's freedom? The first thing that we have to do is come to grips with reality. There is no freedom right now. America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's the land of the oppressed and the home of the cowards. That's what we are. That's what we are in America. The majority of American people are cowards that are too concerned about themselves and their jobs or saying the wrong thing for fear of something bad's going to happen to them. Well, I got news for you. The time is past for that. Either man up, kill the yellow stripe that's running down your back, and do something about this. We have to do something about this, because if you don't, it's going to be very soon that there will be a time where we can't turn back. It'll be kind of like the Jews in the gas chamber. By that time, it's too late to speak up. Should have spoke up before, when they tacked the Star of David on your chest. These are perilous times, but this is not impossible to fix. But we have to have a come to Jesus moment in this country. Serious come to Jesus moment, regardless of your faith. We have to have a reality check more than anything else. Unbelievable. Hour number 1's done. Hour number 2's on the way. When we come back, Popeye's going to be joining me and Jason and I as we continue this discussion on Ferguson and so much other things. I mean, I tell you, nothing gets me fired up more than people making the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism. One mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Well, I got my blood pressure down to about 200 over 140, so I'm getting down there, Jason. I tell you, it's a... First hour was a little bit, shall we say...
Fired up.
Yeah, fired up for sure. Joe Joseph here. You're listening to the Freedom Link on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. Popeye will be joining us here in just a little bit. And while we're waiting on Senor Popeye, first thing I'm going to do is just quickly reset this, because there's a stupid hiss on the line, stupid Skype. And, that's much better. Okay. And I want to bring up something a little bit more off topic, but equally important nonetheless. One of the problems that we face as a nation also is not just the apathy of the American people, but also the apathy of those that serve in the government and the armed forces. It's a fight that I wage every day, because I made the conscious decision to, instead of just complain about it, I said, okay, I'm going to get in there and try to make a difference in my sphere of influence. And so I've always done so with the idea that, if I can just be an example, if I can be a vanguard of the taxpayers' money, just me, and make a difference, a small difference at that, maybe I'll make a change in somebody else too, and that'll be infectious and it'll grow. 3 years ago, it was 3 years ago in December that I went on Alex Jones's radio broadcast and taught people about Fed Biz Ops and how to use Fed Biz Ops. One person. Why? Because as a civil servant, I knew the ins and out of it. I knew the importance of what was being put out there and that it was a treasure trove of information. And sure enough, soon after that, 2 billion rounds of ammunition found. All these targets, just you name it, they can't get anything by. It was one person. I don't look for notoriety or attention from it. It's just to point out the simple fact that one person can make a difference. But unless you go and try, unless you go and do something, you're never going to know what you're capable of.
Yeah, you basically gave the writers of Snopes a reason to justify their jobs.
Well,
They should just stick to emails and chain emails and things like that.
Yeah.
Stop trying to peddle truth because they don't know what they're doing.
Isn't Snopes George Soros funded?
It's supposed to be, but I don't know if anybody's actually confirmed that or not. But
yeah, I know.
Either way, they should just shut up.
Absolutely, and I'm all for that. So let's the Dr. Pujo Snopes Shut Up campaign.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. So yeah,
Snopes for dopes.
Snopes for dopes.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. So anyway, there's been a lethargy. There's been an apathy for years and years in civil service and also in active duty military. Okay, so with that said, there has been a change throughout government, not just because of the push and the pressure by the American people to be more responsible, to bring down the debt level, but also it has caused those in government to actually start changing policies for the better. And an example of that was this story by USA Today that came out today about 8,000 Navy chiefs, almost 8,000 Navy chiefs are facing the axe. And why is that? Because what happens is these senior enlisted folks, they continue on. They're allowed to go past 20 if you reach a certain rank. And that's regardless of their evaluations. Well, now they're changing that policy, and there's going to be a board that will convene October 22nd or 27th. And at risk are between 7,500 and 8,000 retirement eligible active and reserve E7s, E8s, and E9s with at least 3 years time and rate. And that has to do with if they are not up to snuff, then they're going to be forced to go. And what that's going to do is provide sailors with incentive to actually achieve, to advance, which right now, if you're familiar with the United States Navy, you'll know that it's like gridlock trying to make rank. It's horrible. And it has been for quite some time because of the downsizing.
So there's no room for advancement for anybody.
Right. So, I applaud this because let me tell you something. Just like in civil service, I call them deadwood. There's a ton of deadwood in civil service. Ton of deadwood where you got one person that's kicking ass and taking names, and you got 5 people on his back or her back.
Yep.
And I mean, it's the same way in society, but the thing is, in the private sector, if you're deadwood, you get canned. Time is money.
Right. Whereas the old joke is, what's orange and sleeps 3? The CDDPW truck.
It's true. It's true. But I mean, that's the case, same with your local governments and everything else. There's a, not so much a sense of entitlement, but there's no fear. I hate to say fear, but there's no, first of all, in civil service, there's absolutely no incentive to do, to achieve, because they make it so damn hard for you to advance that, I mean, it's virtually impossible because you've got so many people there that sit there 40 freaking years and wait to retire and just sit behind a desk and take up space.
Yeah, and if you get in there and you try to do a good job, they come after you.
Oh, yeah.
You're showing them up. You're making them look bad.
And there has been some move afoot. There's been some moves afoot that try to mitigate empire building, quote unquote, within government. But, I got to tell you, it's just, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. If you go to USA Jobs, you can go and look at what's available today. And I challenge people that instead of complaining about the government and everything else, get in there and get your damn hands dirty. Because without more good people in government, we're screwed. I'm just saying, right now, we are screwed. It's hard. This idea that, oh, yes, well, if you work for the government, you get paid a great wage and all that. No. When I actually went civil service, I had to take a 20% pay cut.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah,
I felt so strongly about it, you know what, that it was
Mhm.
worth the struggle. It was worth the
Yeah, and
struggle.
if you work for the federal, the dental insurance.
What's that?
If you work in the federal government, the dental insurance is absolutely horrible.
My dental insurance, let me tell you something. It
Mhm.
is the worst.
Yeah.
I mean,
Was it Federal Blue Cross by any chance?
MetLife.
Oh yeah, Federal MetLife. Well, yeah, they're lousy because for whatever reason they don't have to give as good a benefit as a private sector dental insurance company policy does. You know?
Okay, so normal dental policies, right? Let me give you an example.
Mhm.
A normal dental policy would cover, say, cavities and fillings, 80%.
80%. Yep.
Mine's 55.
Mhm.
Uh,
Do you have any major coverage at all?
Major coverage, 35%.
Ooh, yeah, at least you have something because a
Yeah,
lot of
and then
times
a
it's zero.
$1,500 a year max.
Mhm.
coverage.
Some of them are as low as $500 max.
Some as low as $500.
Yeah.
It's not all roses. I mean,
Nope.
when you take a position like that, it's a sacrifice. I mean, people don't understand that what that actually is. But let me tell you something. We have a serious problem in this country with not just the lethargy and the apathy, but accountability. I mean, accountability is so important, and there's a lack of it. And you know, that's
From the
something
top
that
on down.
yeah, that's something that we need. We have to have it at the county level, at the city level, at the state level, at the federal level. We need accountability, and we have to have this sense of honor restored. You know, where people go into it and they do so with a sense of honor and integrity, something that's just sorely lacking. We see this with our local police. You know how they've been militarized and everything else, and that they expect us to respect them when they treat us like garbage. Look, you treat people the way you want to be treated. I believe it was Mammy and Pappy that said that to me. You know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Just treat people the way you want to be treated. Mutual respect.
It's a simple thing to do, and you know, nobody seems to be able to figure that out.
Well, you'd think it's a simple concept, but boy, I'll tell you what, it is really, really difficult to get people to understand that. At just a base level.
Jesus told us to do it 2,000 years ago. We still can't get it right.
And maybe it's because Jesus said it that people fight it so much. I don't know.
Probably.
You know, it's amazing what people will do and the extremes and the ends that they will go to fight something as simple as love your neighbor. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I don't know what the solution is. I really don't. I really don't know what the solution is to that. I don't personally. You look back at history and everybody has to learn the hard way. Every time we learn the hard way. Every time.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah. Only this time it's different. This time it's different. See, this time the powers that shouldn't be possess technology that they haven't possessed before. Let's say a technological advantage. A technological superiority. Yes, we have numbers. Yes, the United States has the largest armed standing army in the world. But I got to tell you, when it comes to the technology that they possess and how close they are to achieving things like artificial intelligence and their whole transhumanism agenda, it gives you cause to be concerned, because really, in times past, when the peasants rose up with their pitchforks and their torches, we had muskets, they had muskets. We had cannon, they had cannon.
Right. The arms were comparable. Now they're not.
Yeah.
They've got stuff we don't even know about.
So, I mean, this is what separates this time from others.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally don't think, Jason, that we have the luxury this time of learning the hard way. I just don't.
Yeah.
I think if we have to learn the hard way this time, it's going to mean some major, major changes to our way of life.
Yeah, it's not at all. And I don't want to see that. I don't think anybody with half a brain wants to see that.
No. Like, for example, let me give you another example. So, let me finish this. I'm glad that the Navy is forcing a lot of this deadwood out.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that civil service would do the same thing. I wish that they would evaluate these people with 25 and 30 years in and just kick them out or force them to retire so that you could get other people and give them incentive to achieve. Oh, look at who's here. It is the one and only Popeye from down the rabbit hole. See, Kev Baker, I can get him to come on his night off.
The civil service stuff is the unions are too entrenched, and they fight that every step of the way.
No, absolutely.
They're in there to defend their brothers, and you can't fire anybody for blatant infractions of the policy. I mean, it takes an act of God to get rid of anybody.
Hell yeah! So Popeye, he says, "I'll be right back."
Exit stage left.
Exit stage left. He's reset.
Oh, isn't it? It's an epidemic tonight.
It's Routerpalooza tonight on the Freedom Link. That's right. So
it's the internet's.
Now he said, it's yours. Yeah, I know. It's mine. I have a satanic router.
No, I just want to know if it was your internet or my internet that sucks tonight.
No, it's everybody's. It's collectively sucky.
It's the internet sucks tonight.
The internet sucks tonight.
What, are they just chopping the cable up out in the Atlantic there?
I don't know what the hell they're doing, man, but it's horrible. Oh, by the way, great comment that you made tonight. A couple of great comments on Facebook.
Yeah, the first one I made earlier today, just because I think it's interesting how there's a lot of people that I've seen complaining about, oh my God, what's going on in Ferguson is just out of hand, which it is. But, oh my God, that's horrible. But like 2-3 months ago, these are the same people that, if you talk to them about exporting the same technology to someone else's backyard for use on someone else's citizens, yeah, well, you got to do what you got to do.
It's all good.
It's the right thing. You know what I mean?
We have to take it to them before they bring it here.
Right, exactly. Right, like, hello, people. You can obviously see with, it's half closed and a pair of, blinders on that there's a much larger agenda. This isn't about protecting you. Oh my God, military equipment on the streets, Joe. All I'm going to say is, we told you so.
Yeah, well.
I'm not flipping out about it because this is not a surprise to me.
Well, no. But you know what I'm flipping out about? I'll tell you why I'm flipping out.
I'm not happy about it, but
I'm not flipping out about the military. I'm not flipping out about the military equipment. I mean, I saw this coming a long time. I'm flipping out because people still fall for the Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton bull. That's why. That they can't what's it going to take? I mean, really, what the hell is it going to take?
Apparently, they rebooted the stage today, Jackson. I don't know if you guys saw this, but apparently he was trying to get money. He was trying to raise money while he was there. He was doing fundraising while he was doing his public speaking at these events.
Yeah, because the Rainbow Coalition, they need that money.
Well, they apparently he was booed off the stage because of it. So
that's a first.
Well, and to Michael Savage's point, I played a clip of him earlier.
Oh, I was listening. I was doing chores and I heard Savage lose it. No, I agree because that caller, obviously the caller's an idiot. See, he's eaten the communist propaganda hook, line, and sinker, and that's exactly what they did. Was they targeted the people that, and I don't even call it communism, I call it Illuminism because that's where it actually comes from, but. The people that were pushing that back in the 50s in the church committee, or not the church committee, what's his name? The one that was running around calling everybody commies, and they ended up. When he realized, when it was a one world government that it wasn't the communists, that it was the Illuminati. That's when he was like, "Oh God," and that's when they took him out.
Yep.
That suddenly became, not useful. But back then, they were targeting well-to-do people here. after that underground, and they started to target the minorities. And they went towards the Latinos, they went towards the black community, and they did so because they wanted to try to radicalize them. It's all part of a much larger agenda. You know, Mae Brussel talked about this. She did a show, and I've aired this before, about the, it's called the King Alfred Plan, and a lot of people say that it was fake. But she did some research, you know, according to her research, she thought it was very real, and it was a way of them releasing it. But the King Alfred Plan is from a book. And in this book, basically, the King Alfred Plan was like martial law, but for black people. And in order to stop race riots, they were going to start rounding up black citizens. And if you look at like the Rex 84 plans or any of these other martial law plans, they always entail rounding up the black community first. I mean, they're going to go for everybody. Don't think if you're white, you're like, well, screw them because I'm in my pickup truck drinking a beer because I'm a white guy. You'll be next, idiot. They're rounding them up first because they fear them more than they fear you, you dumb
That's right.
drinking redneck. Okay? That's the problem. You're so full of yourself that you don't even realize what's going on. They go after them. They go after the people they consider more dangerous first and a bigger threat to them first. Okay.
Well, it makes sense. Why else do they convince these people that they don't need firearms and that they should push for gun control? It's the same people.
Well,
You know,
actually, if you do your research, I've actually put, not you, but I mean, if the listeners, I know you have, Jason. I've put I put a video up on Federal Jack about this guy who wrote a book, and it's him speaking on. It was on C-SPAN, saying 3 hours, and it's this black guy lecturing about how guns helped the civil rights movement because they were able to protect themselves with the use of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, imagine that.
When people like Danny Glover say that the Second Amendment was put in the Constitution to protect white people from freed slaves, he's an idiot. He's an absolute moron. He has no idea what he's talking about. And he probably believes bullshit that he just spewed out of his mouth when he said that, you know, however long ago it was, like a year or two ago when he said that.
I'm sure he does.
You know, he probably actually
buys that.
Oh, yeah, some of them actually do. I mean, I've had conversations with the hardcore commies, and they actually believe this stuff. But they don't, you know, you try to explain to them where it comes from, Marx really was, and who wrote the Communist Manifesto, and no, Karl Marx wrote it. Yeah, it has just because it's like it's almost verbatim of Weishaupt's writings from like 100 years before. That's just coincidental, right? I'm sure they were just like-minded souls. They met each other on the internet. Oh, it didn't exist back then. It's so, you know, it gets irritating. And that guy, dude, I don't blame. I know why Savage exploded because I understand Savage. His brain was probably working 1,000 miles an hour, right? And he hears this guy talking, you know, just spouting rhetoric, pretty much, you know, being race war. You know, I blame that guy won't be satisfied until every institution that was founded on slavery. You're a jerk off. Do you realize that everything still runs off of slavery, sir? The modern day society right now is a slave culture. Yeah. Everybody, black, white, red, Latino, it doesn't freaking matter what color you are, purple, yellow polka dots, it doesn't matter. We're all slaves. Do you have to go to work and do your job every day?
Yeah.
Joe, if you don't pay your mortgage, what happens?
I don't have a place to live.
Right. So does that mean you're
and it's not like I could go off to the woods and claim like an acre of land and build a log cabin
and go do whatever you want with
it? Where do you go?
Yeah, because it's all taken up. Somebody owns it.
Right, but what happens if you don't pay your Jason? Same thing with you. What happens if you don't pay your mortgage payment?
Ain't gonna have a house.
Oh, so does that mean that you have to go to your job every day as a dentist and bust your ass to not only make sure you bring in enough money to cover your mortgage payment, but you also have employees. You got to make sure that are taken care of, your overhead for your business. So, I mean, wouldn't you consider yourself to be a slave to all of those things? Because the people that control all of that are the very people that control everything else.
Yeah, and they lend you money by printing it out of thin air. They don't even have it. It's this fake instrument.
But this false paradigm of, look,
yeah,
I understand that black people were oppressed in this country. What happened in this country's history in the past is abhorrent. What they did, lynchings and all other stuff, it's absolutely disgusting, okay? But it's in the past. You know, you had great leaders. I'm talking to the black community because I've targeted this issue 1,000 times. You had great leaders like Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
The reason they blew his head off is because they knew what he was capable of. They didn't want the black community itself to be, to go on this natural evolutionary path that it was headed on. They feared it for whatever reason. You could say, and it's not just one reason; it's a mixture of a bunch of them. Okay, and I'm sure a large portion of it was racism because they were black. That's really neither here nor there. The point is, it was done. It was twisted. It was tweaked. That's why you have what you have now. You have this younger generation of black men that walk around and, man, I can't get a job because I'm black. Now, to the credit of the older generations, there are still older generations of black men that go out there and tell them that's not true. Get off your ass and do something. That's an excuse. But that has been programmed into them. You can't just look at those individuals and say, well, they're just lazy because they're just ghetto thugs. Well,
Right.
you have to understand what created that. That didn't just come about because they're black. If you think that, you're ignorant. That was done on purpose.
Exactly.
The people that control things did that on purpose to keep them down.
Yep. I
That's
totally.
to rap all of it. Why do you think
Exactly.
they killed Tupac Shakur? Because Tupac was one of the only rappers that, even though he was hardcore and he was rapping, he was singing about being respectful to your mother, not calling women bitches and hoes all the time, maybe being a little bit more respectful to them. He was calling out the Illuminati, this and that, and all of a sudden you have a rapper that's not just pushing being a gangster and killing and drugs. Maybe he's actually putting out some positive messages, and he was reaching out because
you can't
rap
have
was
that.
originally street culture.
Yeah.
That's where it came
Yeah,
from.
we can't have that now.
Yeah,
But-
most of those guys that do positive rap, you never hear from them again. Their careers go down the toilet. And they knew he had something special and that he would have made a difference.
Absolutely.
So they
Now-
had to take him out.
Now let me say this: all of this is fomented by a public relations agenda. That's basically what it is. This is where all the hatred comes from. This is where all of this is fomented from. Is from a public relations agenda. The same thing can be said about what's going on over in Israel with Gaza and everything else. Now, okay, there's a ceasefire and everything else, but do you really know, all of you out there that say, why? I 100% support Israel. Well, when we come back, I have an interesting sound clip from a group of Hasidic Jews that are going to sound off on all of you 100%ers out there and give you a little taste of history that you may not know about. And are you men and women enough to buck up and say, oops, I was wrong, and change the way you think so that we
Just
can
be
actually
anti-Semitic.
Unbelievable. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked one, obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
We're back. The Freedom Link, Joe Joseph here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, along with Dr. Jason Pujo and Popeye from Down the Rabbit Hole. He, of course, his show Tuesday to Friday from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern. And, okay, guys, so, of course, we've got the whole Ferguson thing going on, but, of course, that's not the only thing going on in the world. There's a bunch of divide and conquer that's happening everywhere. One that's very, very near and dear to, like, our good friend Chris Geo and a lot of other people out there is the Israel and Gaza conflict and just how one-sided it is and unbelievably egregious it is. Now, I was doing some research on that, and I found a fantastic clip from a show called The Dean Show. And on this, there's a group of Hasidic Jews that are talking about the whole conflict and how everybody that says, hey, you support Israel 100%, you might want to reconsider what it is you're saying. Now, I'm going to play this clip, and then I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Here it is.
Judaism is a religion of a spirituality to serve God, thousands of years old. Zionism is only around 100 years old. It is the transformation from religion to nationalism, to materialism, created by non-religious Jews who hated the religion, and they really didn't want Judaism. They didn't even want to make their state in Palestine, only in Uganda at the first meetings. The reason they used the names Israel, the Star of David, hijacking, stealing the identity of Judaism and the Jewish people is in order to to get a legitimacy for their existence, that people should say, oh, it's God given to them, and that they should put fear and intimidate people from speaking up against their actions because they'll call them anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
It couldn't be anything further from the truth. As I say, the best friends of the Jewish people is Turkey. The best friends of the Jewish people is all the Muslim countries who've helped the Jews all the time when they ran away from their problems in other lands. So how could you say this? It's something totally different. It's a political, selfish, flawed movement called Zionism that has no legitimacy to exist. It's against the Torah. Maybe just say one thing. It's against the Torah in essence. The concept for Jews to have a state is expressly forbidden in the Torah, in the Jewish teaching, since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago. We were told by the Almighty in a prophecy of King Solomon, and that we are forbidden to have our own entity, our own state, our own kingdom, even in an uninhabited land. And this was held by all Jews around the world for thousands of years, and it makes it worse, compounds the sin, the crime in having a state, because this state of Israel that these nationalists made it in Palestine, made it in a land that was inhabited by the majority Muslim people, by the Palestinian people. So to steal their land, to kill, to oppress, to banish them from the homes, it flies in the face and contradicts everything of the Torah that says thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, that one has to emulate God, be compassionate. So they've used our identity to rebel against God and to desecrate God's name, and to create a rift between Jews and Muslims, and to make a river, an endless river of blood for the Muslims, for the Palestinian people, and anti-Semitism for the Jews, and death for the Jews also. This is unfathomable and unacceptable in no manner.
Is it true that you are against the whole concept of Israel as a state?
That is not only, when you say I am, this means the Jews who are true to the Torah, across the board, in every part of the world, all the rabbinical authorities opposed Zionism from day one. As soon as they came up with the concept, the chief rabbis, we have documents, historic documents, the chief rabbi of
historical
Palestine,
documents.
Historical documents. The chief rabbi of Palestine was approached by the United Nations in 1947, and he wrote, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." And this was in 1947, July. And then 3 months later, they saw that they're being ignored by the United Nations. Yeah. And so he sent another letter to the Secretary General Lake Success, and he said, "We plead with you, at least leave us to the Secretary General, the Jewish Orthodox community comprising 60,000 souls in Jerusalem, objects to the plea of including Jerusalem in the Jewish state that they want to create. Our community demands that Jerusalem be an international zone under your protection, and its residents be free citizens of the international zone." So they said, at least leave us this part, and they were ignored till today. Jews demonstrate, and I think it's important to see, Jews demonstrate, and they're getting constantly, till today, they made demonstrations, and they're getting beaten by the Zionist police. People can see this is an ongoing, people being beaten by the demonstrations. We have many, on NKUSA, you can see the ongoing beating by the Zionist police because they demonstrate against the state, and because they demonstrate against the states, willfully ignoring the laws of the Torah. They dig up graves. They move on a highway, they dig up graves. It doesn't bother. It's against God, against the holiness of the soul. In Muslim countries, they don't do that. Muslim countries respect the Jewish graves. They dig up graves now of thousands of years old, and because they don't believe in the soul, they don't believe in God. Yeah. And what they're doing to the people in Gaza and Palestine is because they've taken God out of the equation. They are ready to sacrifice on the altar of Zionism to attain their goal of the land, anything that stands in the way. So the Jewish people's souls are snatched. They con people into supporting them, and they're doing what they're doing, the Nakba, the people of Gaza and Palestine. We sent a delegation of rabbis.
So I gotta ask our resident Jew here at Truth Frequency Radio, Popeye. So what do you think about that?
No, he's correct. As I've said 1,000 times before to you, I have an issue with the the politicians in Israel using what happened 60, 70 years ago during World War II to justify what they do today. And when I say to justify it, it's not as simple as that's what they say to the world. That's also what they say to their own people, and they program their own people. That's why you see people, not all Israelis, by the way, a lot of Israelis get arrested protesting what they're doing. Their government made it illegal for Israeli citizens to protest what their own government is doing in Gaza, and they do it, and they get arrested every single day. So not every Israeli citizen, just like not every American, is for the war. But the ones that do buy it, just like the ones here that buy it, suck up the propaganda. And those are the people that you see sitting in lawn chairs watching Gaza get bombed. And I think it's disgusting that the powers that shouldn't be over there, which are the same people over here, use what my grandmother and all of those people that survived or didn't survive World War II went through. And a lot of people say, oh, well, the Holocaust, they like to call it the Holocaust, and they like to say it didn't happen or that the numbers were changed and moved around. I mean, maybe perhaps some numbers were. But like when they get into the argument of the numbers and they say it was only 600,000, not 6 million. Well, I don't have a problem believing it was 6 million people of Jewish faith that were rounded up, considering it was like 22 million people in prison camps in total. So if you looked at the numbers and you realize that 6 million of them is a small number compared to everybody else that was in there, okay, and you also understand that in World War II alone, I mean, Joe, there were battles where we lost 90,000 to 100,000 people on one side. Not on both, on one.
You're absolutely right.
You know, in total, you'd lose up to close some of these battles, 200,000 people, you know, all together in one battle. I mean, I think part of the reason that people can't comprehend what's going on, you know, today, and that's why it's so easy. Well, it's so easy to manipulate them, is because people don't have a general understanding of actually how bad it was 70 years ago during World War II. And my father told me he grew up during World War II. He was born I think it was 1942 he was born. So he grew up, you know, throughout, you know, World War II and then, you know, afterwards. And he told me that as like a little boy, he was like 5 or 6 years old, and he remembers there being entire neighborhoods where there was no dads, no men, gone. And they weren't coming back because they were all dead. I mean, gone. Like, picture... For those of you, like Joe lives out in the middle of Nowheresville, but like Jason, picture where you live, right? Yeah. And you look up and down your block and you live in like suburbia, right? Picture for a 4-block, 5-block radius around your house, there not being one man at all in any of the houses because they were all killed in action.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge number of people.
Well, and that's why the number. I mean, you know, I know I got sidetracked to numbers, but that's where this high amount of numbers comes from. And part of the other thing that nobody wants to talk about that gets, you know, swept under the rug is all the people we killed. Remember all those heroic bombing runs that like the B-17 crews did, and what's the Memphis Belle? They made a movie about it, and all these other crews that went up there and bombed. Yeah, we got those Nazi bastards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They killed how many innocent civilians in the process?
Well, yeah, but who else do you think we were killing, too? Not only was it, I mean, it was the civilians, too, but not only was it civilians, but it was all these prisoners.
Right. Exactly, because they were the ones working in the factories.
Exactly. Who do you think built the tanks, the planes, the missiles?
The Walthers. Oh, yeah. Exactly. It was all prison labor.
Yeah, slave labor. They used slave labor. So a lot of
we went and bombed their factories, unless of course they were owned by our companies like GE.
Which even in then they were slave labor. The Nazis provided the slave labor to run everything. So I mean, history is very skewered. People don't know. You have to understand the very many layers of real history to understand the very real problems of today. It's not as simple as, oh, it's the Jews versus the Muslims. They bring it down to that level. So that way it's easy to get people on board because that's the most base level of way of looking at it, and they drag you in emotionally.
Yeah, and but the reality is totally different. It's much more complicated and much more layered than that.
Of course it is. And let me ask you this. Everybody keeps saying, well, how come Hamas keeps violating these ceasefires? Does anybody wonder if perhaps Mossad still has its hand up Hamas's collective rear, like a puppet? I mean, Hamas was created by them to deal with the PLO. So you're going to tell me that, well, they broke free. They don't have any more connection. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mossad has at least one agent in every group in the Middle East. Okay, this is a known fact. This
And
isn't
the United
hyperbole.
States, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is a known fact. So you're going to tell me they don't have someone in Hamas? So all Bibi has to do is make a phone call to somebody who then makes a phone call, and suddenly during the ceasefire, oh look, Hamas fired a rocket at us. We have an excuse to drop another 3,000 tons of ordnance on Gaza. It's a convenient excuse. You know,
I know. And what they're firing, I mean, you can go up to Phantom Fireworks and get better armaments than what Hamas has.
Oh, it's ridiculous, dude. Really, you see these, you see them firing. They're like, "What about those Katyusha rockets? They're homemade. It's ridiculous." You know, and if one of those things falls in and hits somebody, it doesn't do half as much damage. And I'm not giving Hamas any credit. They shouldn't be firing the rockets either. But you have to ask yourself. And I'm sure the younger members that are going out and actually firing rockets, they're compartmentalized morons. They're useful idiots. It's the people higher up that send them out. You have to see who they're connected to and who pulls their strings, because it's just too convenient for them that every time that there's a ceasefire, suddenly Hamas fires a rocket or something, and people go, see those damn terrorists. No, if you lived, first of all, if you lived in an occupied country, perhaps you would be willing to do what they do. But you have to, again, look that it's not the civilians that are being bombed that are part of Hamas. You know, and it's always the same thing. Well, it's Hamas's fault because they hide weapons amongst civilians. You know, I'm so tired of hearing that excuse. They have special forces crews. If you know that there's a weapons cache somewhere, why don't you inject your special forces crew in there? That's why you have them. Oh, we don't have those. Really? Really? The IDF doesn't, and Mossad doesn't have any type of special infiltration units.
No,
right.
Of course not.
Right. Sure. So they could send them in just like we would with our special ops guys, like we would send in the SEALs or we would send in Delta or somebody. Joe knows what I'm talking about. You don't have to use a 2,000-pound JDAM to take out a weapons cache. You can go in and take out the guards and then throw satchel charges in the building and collapse the building.
That's right.
And this is something that goes back to World War II, so don't tell me that doesn't exist. There's no reason to go in. If you really wanted to do strategic military operations, it's capable of being done. Okay? They just want to level things. They call it mowing the grass. So, I mean, as long as we're honest about it, let's just be honest about it. Don't lie. That's one of my biggest issues. Like, don't try to twist history and everything else. And when I say I don't like the fact that they use what my grandmother went through, my grandmother was in a concentration camp. She had her face beaten in by a Nazi soldier because she turned her head when they were executing people in front of her. They shot a couple people in the head in front of her, and because she closed her eyes and turned her head slightly, they caved her face in, and she bore the scars on her face for the rest of her life. And she became an alcoholic because of the PTS that she suffered for the rest of her life because of what she went through and what she witnessed. And she also had a tattoo on her forearm.
Yeah.
So
no, you raise an interesting point. You're right. There aren't enough people alive today that either remember World War II directly, or those of us that are alive either have forgotten the stories we've been told or never heard them in the first place. People are too young to have heard the stories firsthand from people that witnessed it, either that fought in it or that, like, were kids during it, were over in Europe during it, experienced bombing raids. You know, they weren't the people that were almost like too far removed from it now, so we don't have that perspective of at least getting a secondhand understanding of what it's like to actually live through the hellish nightmare of a full-on war like that. You know, we don't have that perspective anymore. And if we had that perspective, I think the American people would be a little less quick to say, yeah, just bomb the hell out of them. Nuke them all, let God sort them out.
Of course. And again, people always bring up the numbers and say, well, I don't believe the numbers. Again, okay, maybe the story of the gas chambers and how, like the official that you've been told now where they took them off the train and just gassed everybody. No, that obviously wasn't true. They did gas certain people, but only the ones that they felt or actually they shot more people than anything else. They just had pits right there and they would just open pit executions. But that was for the people that were useless to them, the elderly, the sick, but anybody that they could use as slave labor or as test subjects like Dr. Mengele and all the things he did. I mean, it happened. So again, when people go, well, I don't believe the numbers. Well, you're not paying attention to history, because there was 21, 22 million people rounded up. I mean, look at how many people Russia lost.
Yes.
Russia by itself.
It's
staggering numbers in World War II they lost. It's just absolutely and for what? For a small group of people to advance an agenda and to get richer and consolidate power. That's all that really ended up being about, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it ended up being, in the end, the destruction of the German, or at least the attempted destruction of the German commitment to excellence and drive and industrial strength that they had.
The Germans must have pissed somebody off, because they did it to them twice.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, Germany was the big loser in the whole thing. I mean, not just the loser in the war, but I mean, they lost about 20 million people in the war. So they lost just as many people as their victims, for God's sakes. I mean, there was no gain for Germany to do that. There was no benefit at all.
There was no gain for anybody except the people behind the scenes, like the Rockefellers over at U.S. Standard Oil. Who, by the way, the bombing of London and all that wouldn't have been able to happen had U.S. Standard Oil, again owned by the Rockefellers, not supplied the Luftwaffe with the oil that it was a special additive they needed to mix into the oil. They needed this additive that Standard Oil made. Okay, put into the mixed into the oil. So they bought everything from Standard Oil, but they needed this additive that they manufactured, we'll say, in order to make their planes run properly. So U.S. Standard Oil, during World War II, the Rockefeller family, Rockefeller Plaza in New York, where everybody goes ice skating and thinks, oh, it's so cool to hang out with Prometheus and everything else.
And BC.
Yes, and
the Blue Room for dinner.
And celebrate the sun god's birthday, with the tree.
Right, and everybody loves NBC, and they love Rockefeller Plaza, and we love the Rockefellers, they're so great, and Senator J. Rockefeller. Yeah, that family was profiting from people dying, from American Marines, soldiers, airmen, and soldiers dying during World War II. They actually helped British citizens be murdered because they supplied the additive that the Luftwaffe needed.
Say it ain't so.
But that's considered treason by our own laws. But hey, don't worry about it. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Let that go. And
but Pop, I 100% support Israel. I just wanted to say, indiscriminately, indiscriminately and totally ignorantly.
Most people that say that have no idea what they're even supporting, and it's just, I did a show about 2 weeks ago where I played audio from these two survivors of the Holocaust, and then from a couple IDF soldiers, explaining what really goes on. But the Holocaust survivors, they said it pretty much the same thing I did. The one was like, the problem is the youth of today, they don't have any connection to what happened back then. They don't have a physical, they read about it in books, they might hear it in stories here or there, but they really don't have a good understanding of what really happened. And the youth of today doesn't understand that they are the exact, they are the epitome of what was done to their ancestors and their relatives 60, 70 years ago. They've become the oppressors. They've gone from being the oppressed to being the oppressors. And again, it's because this youth, the youth of Israel, just like our youth here, there's and throughout the world, but many of these countries that are controlled more so, it's very noticeable that nobody has this connection to like the amount of loss and death that happened during World War II. So they don't understand. They just don't have this. It's not like. They hear the stories, but they don't quite. The piece that's missing to make it all like glued together is the realization of exactly what happened. You know how, like, if you were around, if you were an adult on 9/11, like right now, there's 11 and 12-year-old kids, right, that were born.
They're going to be teenagers this year,
right? And they have no idea what life was before the police state, before 9/11, or anything like that. We remember that day. We remember everything that happened. We remember how life was before, how life has been changed afterwards. Okay, people that were around back during World War II have that same kind of comprehension. Like I was telling Jason, my father grew up during World War II, and then he was born in 1942, so he grew up like during it, and then he can't, he's old enough to remember a lot of experiences when he was like 5-6 years old, and he remembers being in neighborhoods where there was just no dads for blocks and blocks and blocks because they were all dead, because they were all killed in action. I mean, that's how many people were just literally removed from the planet.
Yeah, I mean, my dad wasn't quite old enough to fight in World War II. He was a teenager, but one of my uncles did, and I mean, he survived. He did great, and he came home and he did great as making a life for himself. But we didn't really hear too many of the war stories from him. But it was probably like that generation. They just didn't talk about it. They didn't want to share what they went through. They did their job. They came home. They survived, and then they got on with life. But there was always a thing there. Like, yeah, that was something that
just look at the beaches.
They couldn't let that happen again. And
look at the beaches of Normandy.
Yeah, look at all the graves.
Like, people don't understand. Like the beach landings. How many guys died on those?
Oh, man.
They didn't even make it into combat. They died in the water, in the Higgins boats, or they died on the beachhead itself. They didn't even.
It was a
make
bloodbath. It was an absolute bloodbath. And let me tell you something. It certainly gives legitimacy to what General Smedley Butler, the most decorated Marine in the history of the United States, said. Very simply, war is a racket. It's an absolute racket. And we are just willing pawns, basically, that just go in the name of freedom and democracy to defend America. And that's what we do, willingly. We go and we get slaughtered. For what? For the profit of what they call an elite few.
Dude, IG Farben, Bayer. You like Bayer aspirin?
Bayer Corporation. Yeah.
You like Bayer? Oh, it saves people. 70 years ago, if you had said that, I think they would have had a different view on things. Bayer was part of IG Farben, the Nazi war machine. So was this company that ended up getting bought up by Eastman Kodak. My father actually ended up working for a company called Sterling.
They actually didn't they have a nuclear reactor down in their basement?
Yeah, and they bought a company called Sterling Drug. And if you research, Gary Allen actually talks about Sterling Drug, and so did a couple other people in their writings. Sterling Drug was formed by, if I remember correctly, it was six doctors / scientists, whatever. They formed it, and the money that they had to form it, like the official story says it was their money, but it's not. If you research it, it was CIA fronted money to them. Obviously, money going back to Nazi plunder, World War II, whatever. This money was fronted to them to start Sterling Drug, and my father, when I was a kid, he worked for them for a number of years, and I didn't know any of this until I was older, and I started doing research, and I came across the company name, and I was like, oh my God, my father used to work for them, and I told him all this stuff, and he's like, no, and I started showing him, and he's like, and he was like, because he knew the story, he knew the official story, and I was like, what if I told you that the money was fronted to those doctors by the CIA, and that it wasn't really, and at first he didn't want to believe it, and then I started showing him the evidence, and he was like, well, maybe. That's kind of weird. Why would they do that? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of reasons they do things. But yeah, Joe, to answer your question, Eastman Kodak, they found a reactor in the basement in one of the buildings in New York.
Because that's what, personally.
How'd that get there?
You never know. I mean,
you know how many reactors are in the basements of college campuses and stuff, and people don't know about it?
I know where there's one near my office.
That's nice.
UMass Lowell has one.
That's nice.
Oh yeah, of course. Because we should all have that. Dudes, we're out of time already. 2 hours come and gone.
Another half an hour's worth of comments.
Dadgummit, I know, it's awesome. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us for the last hour, Popeye. And folks, check out Popeye on Facebook, because he always gives those good little comments from time to time, and he certainly hit a home run tonight with the couple that he put out. And of course, Dr. Jason Pujo, we'll see you again next week.
All right.
Stay tuned for David Whitehead, Truth Warrior, coming up next. Have a great night, everybody.